Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. Hey Health Junkies, welcome to another episode of The Health Fix. I'm your host, Dr. Janine Krause, and on today's episode of The Health Fix podcast, I've brought back Kristen Bowen, and we're going to be talking about my 30-day magnesium soak challenge and my results. Plus, I'm also going to be talking about the results that two of my patients who did it with me received, so this is exciting. So if you didn't hear my previous podcast with Kristen, she is the owner and founder of Living the Good Life Naturally.com, and she has an amazing magnesium, so it's a liquid magnesium, legit magnesium product that is amazing. And I'm going to share what kind of experience I had, the ins and outs, and we're going to talk a little bit more about if you try a 30-day magnesium challenge, what might happen and what kind of things to look for. So this one's a fun one. Let's get into the podcast. Okay, health junkies, I'm excited to talk to Kristen today because I finished my 30-day magnesium challenge, and boy, did I have some fun. It was great. And I got two patients to do it with me, so that was even more fun so that we could kind of share what was going on. So of course, you just mentioned that, we got to talk about where were my results in the first place. So 4.6 was my red blood cell magnesium, which isn't super low, but with the range,
not acceptable though.
Not ideal. Yeah.
We want it higher.
Mm-hmm. And the patients that I ran this on, they were in the low fours. So, looking at, I think one was 4.2, I believe the other one was 4.1. So definitely everybody on the lower end of things. So,
and that right there is the norm. Mm-hmm. When people get their magnesium tested. And that's exactly why, not that I'm against people getting it tested beforehand, but if your budget is an issue, 98% of us are deficient. Mm-hmm. We know we need your magnesium levels higher. That's the first test I would drop.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to drop that second one. We want to know where you landed. But that first one, if budgetary is a concern, let it go.
Sure. No, and then one thing to mention, of course, because I want folks to know what they're getting into. I didn't pay much more than $40 for my labs. So, and that was cash price because, guys, if you run it through insurance, you're kind of running a gamble because we don't know if your insurance is going to cover it or not. So it's better to go and do it at a cash-based lab. And I know Kristen has a resource, I do too. And we can put that in the podcast notes, but I just was like, within the standard of doing this right, I was going to check beforehand.
Right.
So do you find that most people, like you said, most people are kind of on the lower end, and I'm going, I'm looking at LabCorp standards, and as we know, there's different ranges for different labs. What would be the range that you kind of look at in terms of what's darn low for you? And then where would you be at where you're like, I don't know if we should be doing too much more magnesium or if we should slow it down or something of that nature?
In the 20 years that I've had the privilege of peeking over people's shoulders and geeking out on their lab tests, I've never had anyone come in at 6.3 or above. And that is cell saturation. And that has blown some people's minds because they're like, I take magnesium every day. And then my response is, that is why I continue to get on social media and talk about synthetic isolated nutrients, because they're not giving you the ultimate boost of what you need when it comes to taking your stored vitamin D and converting it to your active vitamin D. So typically people come in the 4s. Yeah. Sometimes we'll see 5s, but typically the 4s is the standard. And so the goal is, after that 30-day challenge, we want you bare minimum at a 5 or above. Now, obviously, it's great if you get at 6.3 or above. If you have not achieved a 5 after 30 days of soaking, that 80% of those days you got your soaking in, then we need to look at your foundation. We need to figure out what the crack in your foundation is. And I always tell people magnesium shines the light on what is broken in your body. And hopefully today, with some of your questions, we'll be able to get into that.
Yes, yes. I kind of compiled a bunch of different things. Of course the range was one thing, but also that's kind of what I see too, is most people will come in at the 4s. Once in a while I'll see a 5. But just for a little back note for everybody listening, I do take a capsule of I was taking capsules of magnesium prior to the challenge. And so what you were seeing with that 4.6, that was me taking 500 milligrams of a particular brand every single night. So what does that tell you there? I mean, that's kind of proof, of course. And of course, that's why I wanted to do that too, just to have my internal feedback. And my
Right.
other 2 patients, one of them was not taking magnesium. The other, who was at the 4.2, was actually at about, I think she said about 300 milligrams a night. And that was kind of her standard. So there you have it. Proof right there in the pudding.
Now,
So
one thing, when you get your magnesium levels back, it's always interesting to lay that magnesium number over your calcidiol and your calcitriol vitamin D, your active and your stored. Because, I mean, 2022, we all know how important vitamin D is for our immune system and a strong functioning immune. Magnesium is what converts your stored vitamin D to your active vitamin D. And so then it just starts unlocking more and more doors into understanding your own body when you start layering tests on top of that.
Interesting. So I have my vitamin D levels and I have them before. I didn't do it after, but I can easily add those on. So that would be something else that we'll add to the mix of things. Because prior to this, my vitamin D, let me pop it up. I can tell you guys right now, it's on my computer. My vitamin D level was 48. So that was so we can see what I went to. And I
So
haven't.
that's your stored. And so do you have your stored and your active?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so when you just get one tested, we're at 99.9% of the time, it's stored vitamin D. I want to know, and I've had so much success tracking my stored and my active and the conversion to keep my autoimmune slowed down. Because it was like once I got one autoimmune, 6 to 12 months later, a second one would kick in. 2 years later, another one kicked in. And so that's what's really helped me to slow that down, is to keep that ratio of my stored and my active in sight.
Okay. So what would folks be looking for? Because I'll be honest, I'm only familiar with the stored. What is the active called? How do we?
So calcidiol and calcitriol,
Okay.
and we want the stored to be lower than the active. We want more active, and the best range is about 1.5 times more. And because there is vitamin D supplemented in our foods, in our orange juice. I saw it the other day in butter,
Hmm.
milk, it's in our flours, it's in so many things. Lots of us have lots of stored, but it's not converting into that usable active. And so watching that ratio between the two is powerful.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Totally learned something there because yeah, I didn't know. I knew there's different tests, but I didn't know kind of the whole background. So that's fascinating. Okay. So got to look at that and see where we're at there. Okay. So questions with magnesium. The first thing that we all noticed in the group and at different levels, mine was a little more delayed. My one patient had a rash that came out within about 24 hours of doing her first soak. And she said she was kind of itchy and a little nauseous. My other patient was nauseous kind of within like that evening after. And mine didn't hit me to the next day, halfway through the day. I was like, ooh, wow, am I detoxing something here? So tell us what that was about.
Magnesium shines the light on what the body needs. So far, and over the last 20 years, as I've, people like this happened or that happened. And then as I start piecing it together, it's a potassium issue. So
Mm.
then we want to look at 4,700 daily milligrams of potassium coming in. And invariably, those who get nauseated or get rashes do not have 4,700 milligrams. And if it's appropriate for them, obviously, those with kidney, you know, that much potassium is not a good fit in someone that has kidney issues. But also remembering if you've got super high stress levels, you might need up to 54 milligrams of potassium. But getting that potassium in, it's gone.
Hmm. Interesting. And so what form do you usually have people, getting the
I'm a whole food kind of girl. I just do everything I can to stay away from those synthetic isolated nutrients. And you can take synthetic potassium, you can buy a potassium tablet, but you're missing so many of the cofactor nutritional pieces when you're not getting it from food. So, celery juice, coconut water, beans, lentils, avocados, bananas, so many just really good, pretty easily accessible foods, just making sure that you're getting enough of those whole foods, and track it for 2 weeks. Just track your potassium levels and see how much you're getting. A lot of people are really surprised. It's about 15 to 2,200 milligrams, which is half the amount that you need.
Wow. Wow. So this leads us into another rabbit hole of sorts because one of my gals, we were like, okay, must be the potassium. We ran her potassium because she's all in for experimenting and seeing what's going on. And sure enough, it was quite low, not enough, where it flagged, on a conventional lab, but it was definitely low. And
Right.
um the other side note on it, though, is we were going, okay, she was also taking licorice root, which has the ability to lower potassium too. So we're like, okay, should we stop
Mhm.
both, stop this foods with potassium, go from there. So we did that. And sure enough, potassium came back up. So we got that straightened out. So that's fun. My favorite potassium is pistachios. I think I like not
Oh,
a crazy person.
love pistachios. And melatonin too, to get whole food melatonin while you're getting your potassium in a pistachio is incredible.
Yum. Yum. Oh, so we went through that and we all had our versions of that. And really after we kind of go, okay, all right, let's adjust this. Nobody had anything wild past that
Oh,
first round.
good. Now,
So,
let me share because this one
yeah.
happens a lot. In that, did anybody get, because magnesium is known as the chill pill mineral, it's the relaxer mineral, it's the antagonist to calcium. But there's a difference between feeling relaxed and being exhausted after you soak. Did anyone get more tired after they soaked?
That would be me. That would be
Okay,
me. The
potassium.
rest.
That tends to be a long-term potassium, not just you were off a little bit, but a long-term potassium issue.
Okay. Yeah, I would
So coconut water is my favorite for that one. Just coconut water, coconut water, coconut water.
So I would imagine you soaking and then you're sipping on your coconut water while you're soaking. Is
Mhm.
that kind of how that's
Yeah.
the vision I'm getting? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I was probably the one that was the most fatigued out of the crew. The rest of them didn't mention anything. And
And
also we
then
all did go to bed afterwards.
let me ask this personality trait, because I find this really interesting. I started noticing a pattern. Would you consider yourself a person that other people look at, oh, she'll get the job done? She's a pusher. She like if you hand her this, she's going to make sure it gets done come hell or high water. Do you feel like that label would fit you?
Probably. Yeah. Yeah.
People who get really, really tired after soaking in magnesium are people who tend to do a lot of things, have a lot of big dreams, take a lot of big, beautiful action to accomplish those things, which is a beautiful trait. The downside of that benefit of doing so many things is they go and they go and they go, and sometimes they go beyond what their body can manage. but they're on, like, they've got that goal. They're very goal oriented people. And so it's almost like a little bit of a turn off switch with their body of what's going on, because they have that big goal and that passion about what they want to get accomplished. They're ignoring their body a little bit. And so taking the time to soak, really focusing on those potassium needs, and really spending that time reconnecting back to their body, like, what feedback am I getting? How tired am I? And just making sure that that connection is there can be a really powerful shift for those people, because we need people with those big dreams and with that big vision, making big change in the world. We also need those people taking care of themselves so that they're here to create that big change.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, I would say I probably would be number one in that category. And granted, I would do the soaps and then I was to bed right after it.
Yeah.
And I will say, along with all of the other crew that did the experiment with me, we were all very, very good at sleeping. And all three of us do struggle with sleep. I often
Oh,
wake up in the middle of the night.
we had improvement with sleep across the board. That's
Hmm.
awesome.
Every single one of us.
That's awesome.
Usually I am not sleeping unless I have progesterone on board.
Mm-hmm.
With the capsules of the magnesium, it did help me relax a little, but this got me to the point where I didn't wake up in the middle of the night at all.
That's
And
great.
I
That's
was
great.
like, okay, we got this, we got this. But yeah, no other negative side effects that anyone mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to kind of drill the ladies about anything else. For me, I would say it was sleep and calm. I felt sleep and calm, and I run a tight ship here between my house here and flying back to Washington and taking care of patients, and definitely more chill instead of being my usual ah. And
Yeah.
then the gals told me that they felt more, that they had more energy during the day. And the other gal was talking about her bowel movements being better.
Oh,
And
good.
so
That usually doesn't happen until later on. And so many times people will view that as the soaking in magnesium isn't working, because you take magnesium oxide and most people will experience their bowels not immediately, but within an hour or two, their bowels have moved. But here's the downside to that. It's actually weakening peristaltic action. So you're getting a quick benefit with long-term consequences. Soaking in magnesium is helping to restore peristaltic action, and it's helping to get the body back where it needs to be to have those bowels evacuating as they need to. So that's great that she got that in the beginning, because usually that's a later on that people start to experience that.
and when you say later on, like how much later on into a protocol would it be?
Usually about 30 to 45 days in is when they're
Okay.
like, oh, my bowels are better. And sometimes there's a frustration in the beginning. So if you've been taking magnesium oxide to get your bowels moving, and then you stop that and start soaking and expect the magnesium soak to do the same thing, your expectations and the reality are mismatched. And so that can create frustration, spike your cortisol levels in the very thing that we want to help your cortisol levels. And so understanding that, yes, it will help, but it takes longer to get there, because it's not a quick fix solution. It's a slow time build. So we've got to make sure that we're covering that in the interim, from when we start that to when it actually starts to happen. But usually about 30 to 45 days is when I see that.
Okay. Okay. Well, we will note that, because I definitely have some folks who are switching over now, because I've been talking about things of course. And, here's another interesting component that, I don't know for sure because my skin fluctuates a lot.
Mhm.
I have some interesting candida type of things on my skin that have now turned into even darker marks that a lot of docs have thought may be related to blood sugar imbalance. However, my blood sugar is never abnormal. And so the technical term is acanthosis nigricans. So darkening in I don't have it in my neck, but I have it in my armpits, where it looks like I have like
brown spots
Gosh,
all
that usually is right along with blood sugars. What are your morning blood sugars running?
about 80, 85.
Okay,
My
that's so
A1C,
interesting.
yeah, my A1C is like 5.2, 5.3 on average. And
Hmm.
I have done those continuous glucose monitors and haven't, nothing. I mean, nothing spikes, nothing does anything. So we were always wondering if there was some issue with candida, because that's when it showed up the first time, when my armpits just popped off as I was covered in a rash. So with the magnesium, I was kind of like, okay, what's going to happen? And folks,
Right.
just so you know, I'm still doing soaks, so we there'll be more going on here. But I was trying to see if perhaps there might be something with transport to try to balance, as we know, magnesium helps with blood sugar.
So where your blood sugars in the morning are where they need to be, it's just my head's just wrapping.
Mhm.
Like where can we tighten that up? We know that magnesium also helps the cell to be more open to receiving that insulin, which is a good thing because we know that insulin floating around your body, not used by the cell, is incredibly inflammatory. The one thing I wonder is if you're how much walking are you getting in? How much movement are you getting in?
Oh man,
Like, do you track your steps? Are you somebody that tracks your steps?
not anymore. No, because at my office, I never would sit down all day long.
So you
So,
knew you were getting enough.
so I
Yeah.
knew I was getting enough. Now it's a little different because I'm at my dad's. I sit a little bit more. I take about 3 walks a day. So I would say,
Yeah, you're getting that movement in then. I'm not sure on that one what's going to help with that fading, that sign that you've got of a blood sugar issue when the blood sugars are actually well. I don't know on that one.
yeah. Well, here's my interesting thought and my interesting take on it. Because I was doing foot soaks all along, I was like, maybe we do body soaks because it's my armpits. So I'm like,
Right.
let's try.
Now, a lot of times is what I'll do is I'll take the magnesium and I'll rub it underneath my armpits. Is what we found is the magnesium, it's like priming the pump. And when we took thermal imaging and put it on people who were soaking who had done that and people who had not, 100% of the people who did it, the magnesium traveled faster through their body to get up to where they had rubbed the magnesium. So it on that lymph node right there. So it literally is like priming the pump. Now, you don't want to do that after you've shaved because it will tingle. Magnesium is a salt. And you also want to make sure that's a tender area for people, and we don't want to have your skin break out. So do a little test patch, make sure that's appropriate. I actually use the magnesium as a deodorant, and it works great for me. Some people will love it, other people will hate it, but it very much after my workout helped with that smell, that sweaty smell that you get after a workout. And so I love it under my armpit. So it'll be interesting to see as you use that what happens.
Interesting. So you're using the liquid
Yeah,
and just kind of down. Okay.
I use the spray bottle and just spray it on, but not after I've shaved, or I'll just start flapping like a bird, cool it down. Like, oh my goodness.
I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine. That was the first thing I warned the ladies. I'm like, when you put your feet into that first soak, you're gonna feel something for sure. It's gonna be a little.
That some people do and some people don't. And that threw me in the beginning. Like, why aren't they feeling it? And it comes down to vagal nerve tone. So someone who has really poor vagal nerve tone is not going to feel that pulsing sensation. Most people experience it, but some people don't.
Interesting.
And they're the ones who need it the most. And they're the ones who go, oh, I don't even feel anything. It's like soaking in water. It's like, no.
This is good to know. This is good to know because all three of us did feel it. But I know in the past I've had people that have tried different versions of magnesium and have said, yeah, I don't feel anything at all. I mean, with synthetics, who knows? But
Well, and a couple things can make a difference there. So if it's manufactured in a lab, more people, the majority of people will not feel anything because it's a completely different product and cannot get you to cell saturation. The other component is because there is seawater in the magnesium, it's extracted from the Zechstein Sea, they don't have to tell when they're adding distilled water to dilute the product. And so a very diluted product, you're not going to get that either.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you guys go. So now you have to check your vagal nerve tone. So this tells you how healthy your vagus nerve is as well,
Yeah.
to give you a good sense. Because I think a lot of people don't believe me too when I'm like, you're really depleted. The vagus nerves really take
Yeah.
it.
And a simple way that you can do that is just a blood pressure cuff. Take your blood pressure lying down, stand up, take your blood pressure again. If that top number drops, that's a vagal nerve tone adrenal issue. And so we know we've got some work to go before you start to feel that. But at least that helps them understand why they're not feeling that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. Makes sense. Now, one of the ladies that was in the group here of the test has Hashimoto's.
Mm.
And we suspect that there might also be maybe a little mixed tissue, like connective tissue disorder, kind of
Oh gosh, that's a
component to it.
heartbreaking one.
Yeah, and so we suspect that might be part of it, and so she was soaking away, and no, we didn't see any. She's still going though. That's the thing, and I can
Mhm.
also do a take. We could do another one, maybe 90 days out or so. So she was asking me, because I have some notes here for you from the care. She was asking, okay, what else might she be noticing as time goes on autoimmune wise, because she's starting to get some energy. She's feeling a little bit more energetic. The bowels are moving a little bit better. Now
Great.
she's like, what's next? What do I
Okay.
expect next?
So in 30 days, that's incredible. And I always like to tell people, because churn and burn is what got us not feeling well. And so we want to make sure that we're just sitting for a minute and going, oh, look what I did for my body in 30 days, and celebrating that and really appreciating the fact that our body responded to that magnesium. And then the next thing, especially where there's autoimmune involved, I would want to watch that stored vitamin D and that active vitamin D and that conversion rate. Now, that's a slower moving one. So it's not something that you test and then 30 days later you test and you're going to see the benefit, but you will see a change in 90 days. And so as someone who has had a lot of autoimmune diagnosed, that's one that is so important for me to keep my eye on, that I'm getting that quality vitamin D from the sun. I get mine in the early morning walks. I've got that magnesium to help make that conversion, and I'm eating foods that are rich in vitamin D.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good, good, good. That would be, I mean, easy enough to do. We can do that.
And then also another thing she wants to watch is in the afternoons. How is she feeling in the afternoons? As there are 3 stages that you'll go through as you soak. The first stage is feel so relaxed. Just, okay, I'm just going to bed. Wow, my sleep was so much more refreshing. And then is what will happen. And this one is all over the map in time frame. And so I can never tell anyone. It'll be like, it's your own individual journey on this one, but it will actually start to energize you. And so you're used to soaking at night, and not a racing thought kind of keep awake, but just energized. Oh, I've got all these ideas and I want to do this. Well, we want you going to sleep. And so then you need to change that soaking time and put it earlier in the day, morning up to late afternoon. And then you'll hit this really sweet spot that your body knows magnesium is coming. It's been coming consistently, and it evens out. And you can soak morning, noon, or night. Your body doesn't over relax, it doesn't over energize you, and you can soak whenever you want. And those are the people that I see their numbers staying solid at 6.3. So for example, in December, I've got my birthday. My son makes me these floating custards that are delightful. They've got a little bit more sugar in them than what I normally eat, but there's no way I'm going to say to this 30-year-old son of mine, not eating that. So I celebrate my birthday with him. We've got the holidays, getting all the stuff ready for the grandkids and the kids, all those extra stresses. We have to match our soaking with our eating habits and our stress levels. December is is more stressful for me. There's more demands on my time. The company is very busy in December, and my personal family life with those traditions that are so important to me to keep my family glued together. And so we've got to make sure, okay, if both of those have gone up, we need to offset how much we're soaking. Maybe for you, it's in a holiday, Valentine's, like you just start Valentine's 2 weeks before and end Valentine's 2 weeks after, and you're eating more sugar that entire time. We've got to offset your soaking so that they're staying hand in hand, so you're not tanking your levels and then bringing them back up, and then tanking your levels and bringing them back up. We want you doing that 30-day challenge and then maintaining. And that maintenance is so important.
Makes sense. It makes sense. Kind of thinking about, summer's coming. I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of athletes in my
Mm-hmm.
practice and going, okay, so magnesium could be useful. And then also
Oh,
watching the potassium on it.
muscle recovery and athletes. And if it if there's one thing I could get people to understand, people tend to walk away from taking care of their bodies in the summer because they feel better naturally. There's more light. They tend to be outside more. They're doing those natural basic pieces of grandma wisdom that help facilitate lower inflammation. Right there is the best time to soak in magnesium, because with that inflammation dropped, your magnesium is going to be more efficient in your body and get more done. The same soak in the summer is not the same benefits in the winter. And so in that summertime, that's the time to really focus on your numbers and get them up. And it's easier to get your numbers up and takes less soaking time. And my entire goal is minimum input for maximum output. I don't want to be that person who just, that's all they do all day is, oh, take this supplement now and eat this healthy thing. And oh my gosh, I've got to be healthy. I'm getting healthy to be out there climbing trees and running the ocean with grandbabies. That's why I want to be healthy. I don't want to be focused on it 24/7. In the summer is your most efficient time to move your vitamin D levels.
This is good to know. I did not know that. And I like that because
They move faster, they move easier. And for me, the more I attach my living to living seasonally, the easier it's been to create optimal health. And so, one of the things is, because I don't use synthetic vitamin D to supplement with, I do the sun. I know that my levels are going to drop in the winter. I don't keep them straight across the board all 4 seasons. I know that there's a natural drop in the winter. So August, I redo my 30-day challenge so that my numbers are going to be optimal and as high as I can get them going into the winter, knowing that they're going to drop a little bit, knowing that in the spring, my focus will be to bring them back up again.
Okay. This gives us another thought process, folks, of how to utilize the magnesium more effectively. And when in the summer you're saying lower amounts of soaking, what are you saying on average, like 10 minutes versus 30?
Not the time. It's still the same amount of time, but less. So for example, someone who soaked for 2 weeks in the summer, and depending on inflammation levels in their body, they and the benefits that they'll see are taking them twice as long in the winter. And so I just love people doing that in August, doing another 30-day challenge to make sure going into winters, because we know you want a strong immune, you want strong vitamin D levels, you want high active levels of vitamin D. Well, that magnesium has to convert all of that. And so let's make sure that that magnesium's high going into that.
Okay. So August, and in the spring, what's an ideal month if we give people 2 months?
I always, January and August are my 2 months. I just January and August. And then, for example, if you have a surgery, anesthesia strips your magnesium, drops it back down. If you've had the surgery, just plan on another 30-day magnesium challenge after the surgery. If you're someone that has spring allergies. We know that's a histamine response at the mast cell. Well, magnesium supports the mast cell. So let's make sure that we're getting those magnesium levels up a month before those spring allergies tend to hit.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. Okay, folks, we'll have to replay this next December, January, so folks can get that going back in, because I imagine a lot of folks right now are starting to experience a lot of the springtime allergies, which
And soaking now will still help that.
definitely. Definitely. So after a 30-day challenge, what's kind of the schedule that someone should be on for soaking going forward from there?
I love this question. Depends on your numbers. So if you hit a 5 after the 30-day challenge and you're like me and your goal is cell saturation, then doing another 30 days with 80% of that soaking, testing again to make sure that that number came up. Once we hit 6.3, that sweet spot seems to be between 1 and 2 times a week.
Okay.
Once you've hit that 6.3. So if you'll invest in the beginning, get up to 6.3. I have seen some people have had to do 2 30-day challenges back to back. And then once we're at that 6.3, usually to maintain that is 1 to 2 times a week. But you know your body better than I do. And you know, if you've got high levels of stress, it might be more. If you're a soda drinker, you've got to soak more. If you have more than 2 alcoholic drinks a week, you've got to offset that by soaking more. So at that point, lifestyle choices and habits really come into play, but typically 1 to 2 times a week.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, okay, going forward now, of course, we'll see what my labs show. And folks, I will let you know. I will video and show you what I got. Because I do want to see if I went to saturation or what. I just keep doing it now because I'm like, it feels good and I'm relaxing. I guess my question would be, since I had kind of a boring group of us ladies not having too much going on.
You really didn't. Like there was very few things that happened, which is good, which is good.
What would be some other things, just, if folks are trying it out and they're going through the 30 days, what other things might they expect to see that I didn't talk about that could be of interest for just random knowledge?
So we talked about the potassium and we covered that one. This was an interesting one that took me several years to put the pieces together. And that is, people would say, Kristen, my heels, the cracks in my heels are worse. I cannot soak in this magnesium anymore. And I finally put that puzzle piece together. It's an omega-3 deficiency. And so those people that their heels are cracked and they're getting worse while they soak, magnesium is shining the light that your omega-369 fatty acid balance is off. And you've got too high of 6s and 9s, and we need more of omega-3s. So taking a good cod liver oil pill, eating cold water fish will help to bump those back up. And typically a good quality low heavy metal cod liver within 72 hours will calm that back down.
Interesting.
Another one that we see is numbness will return, like, oh, I used to struggle with carpal tunnel and it almost feels like it's come back. I've got some tingling in my hands and my feet, and that's a B vitamin deficiency. So we want to make sure they're getting really good sources of B vitamins to offset that. Another one is just feeling like their water runs through them a little bit faster. Like I drink the water and then I just have to go to the bathroom. They feel like they're not really getting the benefits of the water. And that one tends to be a salt issue. So just getting some good quality salt, if appropriate for you. Some people that's not, some people it is, but just getting a nice pinch of a good salt in their water can help slow that process down.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, I wonder about the feet. We never talked about the feet amongst us ladies, and no one really said anything. Mine got softer. I was happy.
Yeah,
Mine were
most
nice
people do, but sometimes it gets worse, and those great big cracks can really start to show up, and that can be frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. But good to know. I mean, that makes sense in terms of the omegas. It's such a common thing. And cod liver oil, you are a fan of the cod liver
I
oil.
am. I a good quality without synthetic vitamin D. Oh, another thing, a lot of times, did you guys soak in the tub or did you soak in a bowl of water?
I soaked in a bowl, and the
Okay.
other ladies were one was in a tub, and the other, I believe, was in a bowl as well. Yeah.
Okay, so one thing that we found, and well, to my husband and I, we thought it was an interesting journey of how we figured this out. So he's been on this journey with me for 20 years, my sidekick that doesn't get paid for the work he puts into the company. And we knew where his numbers were at. We knew his patterns of magnesium. He knew what he needed to do it to stay at cell saturation. He was born with a genetic disorder, ended up having below the knee amputations.
Oh my
He
goodness.
doesn't have feet that he can soak in anymore.
Wow.
We had the hardest time getting his magnesium levels back where they needed to be because your feet act as pumps. Your feet act as pumps. They gather information while you're walking, they pump information through, and they pump nutrients through your body. So, if you do go to the bathtub, we had this handful of women. I could not figure out why their numbers weren't moving. And I want to be able to help people. Oh, that's a taurine deficiency. Let's get some taurine in you. Or, oh, it's a boron if hormones get really wacky while you're soaking in magnesium. That's a boron deficiency. Let's get some boron rich foods in there. We could not figure out why their numbers were not moving because they had paid the price, made the dietary changes, made the lifestyle changes. And here's what we figured out. When they soaked in the tub, they put their feet up. How simple is that? And putting your feet down in the water is what pumps that magnesium. Now, you definitely are getting some through your skin, but it's your feet that do the pumping action. And so if you're in the water, in the bathtub, and a lot of women relax and put their feet up on the edge of the tub, but we've got to bring those down in the water so that your feet can do what they're meant to do.
Wow. Wow. Make these magical feet of ours.
Yeah, they're amazing. I have deep appreciation for my feet.
So what do you soak? So how does your husband soak then? What do you
So,
do?
to get him to cell saturation, we ended up doing a 94-day, every day that we didn't miss a day in the bathtub. And we make sure that all of the soft tissue areas of his body get hit and those major lymph nodes that we're making sure that all of that water hits. But it was really a challenge to get his numbers up and figure out how can we do this and make it workable. Now for him, magnesium is so good for the pain receptacles in the body because as you're in pain, you obviously lose magnesium, and then calcium dominant body, the pain receptors stay open, and we want those pain receptors shutting back down. And so he can tell when his magnesium levels are low because his pain doesn't shut down like it normally does. So it was super important for him just for the quality of his life to keep those numbers up. And so it was 94 days, and now he has to maintain 4 to 5 times a week. So a little bit higher maintenance for him and his soaking without his feet, but still doable.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. I'm hoping if anyone is listening and there's an issue with amputation or anything, they heard that one. Just
Yeah. We thought maybe his hands, but your hands don't absorb as much as your feet. Yeah.
Interesting.
So on those lymph nodes, soft tissue, inside of arm, inside of legs, any soft tissue area on the body absorbs more.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm definitely going to be trying the patting it on my armpits, and I'll give you an update as to how that goes.
Yeah, that it's the secondary pump. So the feet are most efficient, and that lymph right under your armpit is second most efficient.
Okay, noted. Now here's the question. You were mentioning boron, and if the hormones go crazy during magnesium soaks. So meaning like estrogen shoots up, testosterone drops. I'm familiar with testosterone and boron, but I'm not familiar with the others.
People will just comment, oh, I felt a little more emotional, or my periods, I could tell it was coming on. I was just a little more teary. And they just had the same symptoms with their hormones as pre-period when that progesterone levels drop. And we don't want magnesium creating more emotional imbalance in your life. We want that really calm, non-reactive, because I want the best of people coming out after they soak in magnesium. And so I found that that was a boron deficiency. And so really getting boron levels up, it was gone. And so now I'll say to people, okay, let's get some boron going in your life. And invariably 100% of the feedback is that went away.
Wow. Boron. And then you mentioned taurine too.
Mhm.
What would be a symptom of taurine?
On taurine, it's just they're having to soak all of the time. Their numbers are up, but it is such a high maintenance commitment. And again, I don't want people just having to focus on soaking. I do what I do so that there's more people out there just living with passion and creating that difference. I've got grandbabies and I want them growing up in a better world. And it takes people waking up feeling good to create that. And so it's like, okay, we got your numbers up, but you're still having to soak every single day pretty much. And taurine just fit the bill on that one. So on that one, I never could pull that together with food, but a synthetic taurine helped them that they were soaking in magnesium less. So just taking some taurine.
Wow. That's so cool. So cool. Wow. That is a lot of details related to magnesium and so
20
fascinating.
years worth of notes.
I love
And
it.
tracking and asking questions and saying, what happened when you did this? Try this. So truly, that the things that I've learned from magnesium come from all the people who have opened their lives to me and answered those questions and allowed me to follow along on their journey to learn. Incredibly grateful to them.
Love it. Love it. Oh, Kristen, thank you so much for coming back on, sharing more knowledge with me and giving me the update on what happened in my little realm here. And I'm
Oh.
excited to try patting the magnesium into my armpits there. And I think we might have to just do a follow-up as to what happens with that and give some more info on that one.
I'm always willing to talk magnesium. Always. So you just reach out and I would love to do another one.
Deal. Well, thank you again. And everybody head over to forlivingthegoodlifenaturally.com. And gosh, she's got all these great products. I mean, I've used the cream, I've used the lotion, I've used the soaks, of course, now, and we're sold on all of them.
Can we talk about, just very quickly, may I share the order? Because this is a question that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to use the lotion to get to cell saturation. That lotion will never get you to cell saturation. And if people think that, their expectations are mismatched with the product. And when that happens, we get this drain of magnesium in the middle. So in order of benefit of getting you to cell saturation, the lotion is the least. It was formulated for grandbabies. I could tell they were being born magnesium deficient. Acid reflux is low magnesium in mama and a baby. And so we get those magnesium levels up in mama and baby isn't born with that acid reflux issue. And so that lotion is the most gentle, but it also is the lowest amount of magnesium. The next one is the magnesium muscle cream. Because it's a cream, it can hold more magnesium on the suspension bridge, but it still is not the same as soaking. The next one is the spray bottle. We don't dilute that magnesium. It's the same as what's in the big bottle. And you can spray it on the bottom of your feet. That's what I use to spray in my armpits. I have one in all of my cars, in my emergency backpack, but it's not going to get you to cell saturation. Those products will help maintain cell saturation, but they're not going to get you there.
Good to know. Good to know. All right, folks. So if you're heading to the website, livingthegoodlifenaturally.com, you got to get the liquid first. then check your levels.
Yeah, soak comes first. So great to be with you. Thank you so much. Loved hearing about the benefits that you experienced and love the fact that you took action on my challenge.
Yeah, no, it was fabulous. I can't wait to do more. So we will update you guys on what happens next in my saga of my skin, and I'll even take pictures for everyone so you guys can see what we're working with, because I do believe that there's something to cell transport and something's missing in the piece. Just got to tap into it. So I think it might be some magnesium. So we're gonna see.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, as promised, I wanted to give you the results of my red blood cell magnesium after 30 days. And turns out it did go up. It went from 4.6 to 4.9. So I would say that's a success. Now I'd like it to go up a little bit higher. So we are going to do another 30-day challenge and see if I can get that sucker up just a little bit more. So stay tuned. Hey fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.